It's Monday, November 21st, 2011. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geeknights. Tonight, how to get around the SOPA.
Let's do this.
This past weekend, we played a game we have not played in many moons. We played the game called Shogun.
It used to be called Shogun.
AKA
there's like
Samurai Swords.
There's like 3 other games called Shogun.
I know.
This is the Milton Bradley Game Master Series, Samurai Sword / Shogun.
One of the finer games in the genre.
Way better than Axis and Allies or Risk or any of the... But I did sort of finally fully realize the one fatal flaw in this game, which is it sort of has the same problem, and it is a minor problem.
The second to last loser chooses the winner.
Well... It's sort of the same problem as Counter-Strike, right? I go up to a guy and I go, and I take him down to 99 health, and then some guy gets a headshot on me.
Yo.
And then some other dude just sort of is shooting like a crazy guy, right? All over the place, and a stray bullet hits this dude in the foot. That guy gets a kill, and I get bupkis, even though I did 99 damage, and that guy did 1 damage.
Granted,
So
in this case, Scott, you were doing okay, but I was pretty much the undisputed master of Japan.
I'm just saying.
From pretty fucking early on.
The thing that Samurai Swords does that's sort of cool is that if you kill someone's last daimyo, you get their whole empire as now part of yours. And that is usually, if you do that, that's enough to win you the game, because now you basically just double the size of your thing and you win immediately. So for example, right, Pete had 3 daimyos. Everyone has 3 daimyos. Rim killed 1.
Yeah, well, because he left it hanging out.
Then there were
his other. Of course, I betrayed him immediately.
His other 2 were incredibly vulnerable, so I had to make a move on one of them because he just killed one of mine. So I destroyed one of his. Just boom! It was totally wasted.
Now,
didn't even
Scott
have a chance.
and Pete both have 2 daimyos each, and
You also had 2 daimyos.
No, well, the thing is, I only lost one because I was a dumbass.
You killed Pete's final daimyo, which allowed you to win. If I had killed Pete's final daimyo, which I was fully capable of doing, I would have won, but Pete chose to move his final daimyo to your side of the board.
He made a very good gambit. You pussied out. You had all your 2 daimyos hidden in the corner in your basey area.
In forts.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Pete's daimyo went out, and he went near me, because what you should have done is chased him sooner, because if you'd been more aggressive, he would have been there, and my daimyo and your daimyo would have been there, and then it would have been, I probably would have ninja'd and or preemptively attacked your daimyo.
Also, I do want to point out, there was an extreme luck factor. I ninja'd twice, and it got revenged twice. The odds of a successful revenge ninja are 1/3 times 1/3.
I point out
1
that Scott,
out of 9. So 2 times in a row, the 1 out of 9 chance occurred.
1, I never used the ninja because ninja sucks. 2,
there was an 8 out of 9 chance that would not have happened, and it happened 2 times.
Well, Scott, both times you ninja'd me when I wasn't even going after you.
But if I had succeeded, I would have gotten you. You would have been toast. I would have won. If either one of those rolls succeeded, I would have won the game.
I highly doubt that.
I guarantee it.
Scott, you let me consolidate in those islands. That basically fucked you from the beginning.
I couldn't, because all of my starting cards on the other side of the board.
So the real reason I won is because Pete let me consolidate on those islands in return for me giving him some bullshit that I then took back from him anyway.
Anyway.
That's
how that game goes.
So what do you got? It's Monday. It's Newsday.
I just got one sort of crazy news.
Crazy?
Yeah, it's sort of weird. So people might not know this, right? But some companies, Apple being the chief among them, right, do not allow their products to be discounted under any circumstance. This is why even on the blackest of Black Fridays in the heart of blackest America, right, you will not see an iPod for even $1 below manufacturer suggested retail price.
Now, it's not just Apple. This is bullshit, and you'll see it a lot on Newegg and Amazon, where they'll say, like, you'll see a product, and it says, price can't be displayed, because basically the agreement is that they can't display the price and continue to sell products from that company. But they get around it by you click on it, and it quote-unquote adds it to your cart and shows you the price, and then gives you the option to immediately remove it from your cart. But it prevents competition in that you can't search for those prices. It's
but
BS all around.
Even without the C price in cart BS, right? Apple has been known to where, like, if you were to buy iPods from Apple, because you're a digital electronics store, you buy a bunch of iPods from Apple, and then you sell them for $10 off. Apple would never sell you an iPod or any Apple product ever again. They'd blacklist you, and you would never be able to stock their things ever, not even little converti cables, because they would just cut you off because they never want anything of theirs to be sold at even a 1-cent discount. Best Buy right now has MacBook Airs with C price in cart for $200 off for the 13-inch.
Whoa.
It's crazy. Is this because Steve Jobs is dead? I don't know. They've
No,
also
I'll
got
bet
they've
Apple's
also got
mad.
the 11-inch for $60 off.
Because here's
on
what
their
I was
website,
about to say.
C price in cart.
Had I been a big distributor, as in one that Apple couldn't just ignore, I would have bought in bulk and then just discounted it anyway and said, all right.
I think Apple would have no problem being just like, Best Buy, you're done. Never, no more for you. Fuck it.
It's hard to say, to be honest.
They would be like, we don't need you. We have our own stores, right? We don't give a shit about you.
But I'm saying is that if I were someone like Best Buy, I would
Risk it.
I would risk it if I had.
That's a good short term, but if you did, get a big stock, short term would be really good. Long term, if they actually pulled out on you, would be zero. So
Thing is, you could also buy
but
Apple
in a
stuff.
bad economy, in a holiday season, not a bad time to blow your short term load.
You could also arrange for distribution of Apple products from gray markets and such to continue selling.
Yeah, Apple might go take it to court.
Yeah, that's tough. That's real tough.
They
Also,
would do it. They got the money.
I don't think they'd be able to pull it off, though.
Maybe.
The other thing you could
call.
do is if Best Buy does it, everyone else realizes, hey, I can do that once too. Small little stores might just go for it.
Suddenly you're going on Amazon and it says see price in cart, MacBook half off, right?
Yeah, so I have a store, I'm Best Buy now. I have a store in Amazon, Mest Buy, and I'm selling Apple stuff. And then Crest Buy, and I'm selling Apple stuff.
Okay, anyway, another tiny news, right? Amazon has a beta site where I wish Amazon would do this more, have specialized Amazon sites for specialized product categories. You can go to wireless.amazon.com, and it's Amazon Wireless Beta, which is an Amazon store only for buying phones and not for buying anything else. And they've actually got a whole bunch of Android phones for a penny. Just 1 penny. Come on, just you like the guys on the street? But yeah, you can actually get like phones.
Nexus,
I mean, like,
Rolex Nexus.
For example, the Droid Razr, right? If you get that with the contract from Verizon, the phone is gonna be like $300, I think, right? With the subsidy and everything like that. They're not giving any discounts on the plans because that's just Verizon's plans. But the phone, 1 penny. So you're saving $2.99 if you go to Amazon, wireless.amazon.com.
Thing is, I'm in the middle of my cycle right now.
I'm just probably gonna get iPhone 5.
And I got a great phone until 4G stops working, thanks Sprint.
Probably get an iPhone 5 in 2012, most likely.
Thing is, since I'm losing my 4G, I have to upgrade at the end of my upgrade cycle. I'm either going to go iPhone or we'll see what Droid has.
Yeah. The main thing is, like, even though some of these
Sprint still has unlimited data,
even though some of these Android phones are starting to look better and more usable, and I'm very googly, so they would probably work out for me software-wise, and I could probably deal with the hackiness and such, right?
There's not,
the main problem with them that I'm having is that they're too big. They're like a whole diagonal inch bigger than the iPhone.
Yeah, Scott, you know what? The majority of Android phones are monstrous bricks. That's why I got the Nexus S.
That's why I'm probably going to end up sticking with iPhone unless someone comes out with a high quality, like, it's got to be
Nexus
high.
S.
It's got to be like high, but Nexus S is already obsolete.
So what I'm saying
it's got to be
is
the high-end, best Android phone, but also has to be 3.5 inches, not 4.5.
So here's what I'll do. When it's time to upgrade, if there is an Android phone that has the same form factor as the Nexus S that is top of the line, I'll stay Android. Otherwise, iPhone.
Yeah, it's looking... Anyway.
I don't know why they're making the Droid phone so big. Who needs that much power?
I think
in
it's
the phone
just
right now?
I think what it is, they can't make the hardware part any smaller, so they just cover it with a screen. Whereas Apple basically fights and fights and fights.
No,
and
because
spends all
I
their
read online a lot of people say like they like the bigger phone, and people I talk to, like I see people.
No,
like, at
that's
work.
post-purchase liking.
I don't know. I see people at work
It's
who
like-
they see someone else's big Droid and they're like, "Oh man, I wish I had a screen that big."
Really?
Yeah, people you have particular tastes in things.
They're stupid.
Most people want other things, even
It's
if you
the same
can't
people buying
understand why.
SUVs. They're just stupid. It's not even a matter of taste. It's just stupid. Okay, let's move on to the real news, the most
All right.
important news of the month.
We have not talked about this much on
It hasn't been
Geeknights, if
Monday
at all.
yet.
But there's a bill in Congress.
This doesn't matter if you're not in the U.S.
Well, it will.
It will, but
H.R.
You can't-
3261,
and
otherwise
also
known
what's
as the
Senate-
SOPA, or the Stop Online Piracy Act.
The Senate bill is Protect IP Act, which is slightly older and still awful. but only like 90% as awful. It's 10% less awful, but
Now,
still awful. We can't have either one of these.
I don't want to get too much into, exactly what's wrong with it because the entire
Everything.
internet is talking about it. But I'll put it this way. If you haven't been paying attention, the DMCA, by comparison, seems like a perfectly reasonable and rational compromise on copyright enforcement.
Yeah, and when the DMCA came out, we are like, this is the worst thing in the universe. Mostly, the biggest thing that's bad about the DMCA
Well,
is...
Google now gave us some evidence for this argument, too.
Right, but the number one thing that's wrong with the DMCA that you could say that's bad law, right, is that it outlawed, like, devices that were primarily used for infringement, right? So it was like, it basically outlawed breaking DRM even if you were going to legitimately do something legal, right?
The other major
so you couldn't
problem
break the
with it-
DRM on your DVD even if you were going to use the video on the DVD in a fair use
There's
way.
a secondary problem that I think is just as important. That, according to Google, the majority of takedown notices that they receive for YouTube are blatantly false.
Yes, the Google representative said this during the SOPA hearing before Congress under penalty of perjury. Because if you testify before Congress, perjury. So, yeah, crazy. Anyway, but the DMCA looks reasonable next to SOPA.
Now,
which
granted,
is the worst.
SOPA is not actually as bad as the CBDTPA, if you remember that
well,
one.
they're all equally awful.
Well, the CBDTPA was going to require basically hardware DRM in all digital devices.
Yeah, whatever.
So SOPA, in a nutshell, basically says that the government, through courts, so if someone who has intellectual property who believes or claims that they are being infringed upon can get a court order to have the DNS of the site shut down basically permanently, and all service providers, the entire DNS system has to accommodate this blacklist.
Well, at least one's in the U.S.
Yes.
So the problems with this are a few. Number one, blocking someone's DNS doesn't actually block them because you can just type their IP in. And
So the law goes on to say that they also have to block access, but doesn't say how.
right, because they want to leave it up to ISPs. That's what they'll tell you, is they want to leave it up to ISPs and service providers exactly the implementation details.
Yeah, you know what? I'll tell you, kids, there's two implementations. Implementation the first, also block IP addresses,
Yep.
which we'll talk about how to get around that too. Implementation 2, deep packet inspection, as in looking at the content of all the packets and figuring out what is going to the previously infringing site. That is something that for the majority of smaller ISPs is a ludicrous requirement. And for the large ones, I mean, don't we hate China's firewall? Isn't that a bad
Well,
thing?
it's so weird, right? I mean, gee, people are like surprised. It's weird to see like people are so surprised at things the government is doing. Like, oh my God, look at this. And it's totally a Daily Show thing, right? You go and you watch a video of like Joe Biden talking about how like censorship is bad, okay? You shouldn't be doing the firewall, China. And then turns around and he's like, oh man, this SOPA is so awesome. It's like, what? You're the contradiction in the government. It exists. And I'm like, yeah, that's par for the course. But it's weird to see these other people go like, oh my God, look at this contradicting government. I'm like, the Daily Show's been on TV for like over a decade showing you the same stuff. Why are you surprised every time?
Because you've got to get mad.
Not gonna take it anymore.
I'm mad as hell and I'm not gonna take it anymore.
Well,
You know what? Yeah, well, we'll get to that. But other issues with this bill, I mean, it's not like you can say that this is the Republicans or the Democrats. This
It's
is pretty much
everybody.
a bipartisan initiative.
this pretty much the only ones who are against it are like the few cool people in Congress or the somewhat cool people, and all the other ones are totally for it.
Ron Paul's against it,
Ron,
obviously.
the number one guy we got on our side is a guy from Oregon, which is like the most open source of all states. Ron Wyden, I think his name is. He's going to go for a filibuster on the Protect IP half. And you can send in and fill out a form, and he'll read your name because he needs something to read.
So I believe he's going to be up there saying such things as Penis McMightier and Michael Hunt.
Nice.
You know.
That's fine. He's just got to read something. I think what he should do is actually go and find websites that have just huge comment threads talking about SOPA, or all sorts of papers, pretty much anything, or just like letters
No.
that.
Let's go one step further. What I would do is I would find a work, a written work that is a fan work, some sort of like technically violating copyright, but yet is a good novel. And read that.
Fan fiction?
Basically find good fan fiction and read it. Or you know what? Just read horrible, like
Furry fan fiction.
furry cloppy whatever fan fiction.
Cloppy. Whatever.
I love that that's a term.
There is no end to material because the internet exists, but it won't if this bill becomes a law.
So we've been through this before with many laws.
Yeah,
but
there's no point in reiterating the same things we have
problem
reiterated
with this one
for
is
over
that
a decade.
it has a pretty decent shot of passing, and
whereas the COICAs and the CBDTPAs we were able to defeat.
And the DMCA was watered down to where, as much as it sucks, there are people who are
livable.
fighting on our side.
It's tolerable, right? It's
partly because Google, for
I'd like to see
example,
it go. I would not mind, but
Google via YouTube does a really good job of basically helping people go through the paperwork to, fight bullshit takedown notices.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, kind of. They do better than I could have expected.
Yeah.
But this bill, unlike all the other ones that we've seen, would be a disaster for the structure of the internet. I'm a technology professional. I'm a vice president of product management. I was a senior engineer on Wall Street for 4 years. I have a degree. Scott has a degree. We're both scientists of computers. This law will destroy the internet.
It will. If this law passes and is implemented, the internet will be broken in a really bad way. The number one way it will be broken is the destruction of DNSSEC, right? So the way
Which, to be fair, isn't really implemented fully.
They've already signed all the root thingies. They're ready to go.
Yep.
And if we can get it to work fully, then it'll be so awesome. And they've put already so much work into doing it that it would basically be throwing out all that
sorry.
work.
I was reading a talking point from a bunch of the people who are for this bill saying that DNSSEC is unimplemented and we don't need to worry about it.
Sure.
Those people are smart. They'll figure out a way around to comply with the law.
So here's the thing with DNSSEC, right? Is everyone knows, if you go listen to our DNS episode, DNS is the system that turns names into numbers. You type in google.com, it turns it into an IP address so that you know where to actually go. But what if you were to say type in bank.com, and instead of getting the numbers for your bank, you got some wrong numbers. So you end up going to my server instead of the bank server, even though your web browser or whatever you're using says bank.com. And then, what do you know? You just typed in your bank info into Scott's website, and now I have your bank info. Good job. This is why DNS is important. We need to make sure, guarantee, cryptographically, mathematically, that the numbers you get for that name are the right ones.
Because DNS relies on trust, and the trust goes up to basically the root DNS servers. We'll listen to the episode for more details, but basically you've got to trust DNS all the way back up to that root, and even if people in the middle are wrong, the root can basically be the safe place. It can be the place that fixes everything. If whole swaths of the internet turned evil, the root DNS servers always know the way home.
So for example, I set up a DNS server and I got all the numbers in there, and they're all the right numbers. Bank.com goes to the right number. Google.com goes to the right number, right? Then if you do the math, if your computer does the math to check the DNSSEC, it'll thumbs up. Hey, this DNS server is totally chill and all these numbers are right. You don't have to worry that you're accidentally going to the wrong server that's going to steal your stuff. But what if the government says, yeah, Scott, hey, on your DNS server there? Yeah, what's up, government? Yeah, that server you got there, I need you to change piratebay.org to point at this other number because piratebay.org's no good. So now my server's got the wrong numbers, so it no longer checks out. So, but other people in other parts of the world, they have the right numbers. But you can't use their server. But now you got rid of security instead of, now it's not going to match up. So what can you do? Well, you can keep using my wrong server and tell your computer, yeah, computer, ignore it when the stuff is wrong and just do it anyway. That way I can, my computer will keep working. But then I'll just send you to scott.com instead of bank.com and I'll fuck you over. Right? So you'd be trading, oh yeah, look, it's harder for normal people to get to Pirate Bay, but normal people also now just lost all their bank info.
Now, more importantly, technological issues aside, I mean, why is this bad? Because in the end, piracy and intellectual property, there are many arguments to be made on both sides. We've been having this argument since the first MIDI file was uploaded to the internet.
We will not reiterate the argument. We will simply reiterate that we are not going to reiterate it.
But the salient point here is that when it comes to that sort of thing, regardless of whether or not you think we need stronger copyright protection, weaker copyright protection, need to make more piracy, stop piracy, it doesn't matter where you sit. One of the most important aspects of America that we have left is freedom of speech. That you can speak freely, that the government basically can't stop you from speaking. They can arrest you for very, very, very specific kinds of dangerous speech. And the barrier to actually doing so is surprisingly immense. The courts almost always rule in favor of free speech. But one of the problems of free speech is that you have to deal with people doing really horrible things with free speech. I mean, hate speech, all that sort of stuff, cyberbullying, and all that stuff is kind of collateral damage of having free speech. We agree that free speech is so important to us that we're going to put up with all the bullshit that comes with it.
Except child porn.
Except child porn.
That's right.
But in this case, by making a system where the government can basically just shut down a website based on some copyright infringement, we're destroying a ton of culture and a ton of probably legitimate freedom of speech, because if Google had anything to say about the DMCA, there's no reason not to believe that this is going to be abused just as much.
Yeah, even more.
The collateral damage to free speech of a bill like this is far worse than any piracy could ever be.
Yes. It is not, even if this bill, right, somehow actually did do good for the world, at what cost? Destroying the internet? Sorry, there is nothing worth that cost.
But anyway, things of the day. If you know me, you know I'm a fan of the particular kind of prank where the people who are pranked never really know that it's a prank. Like the weird stuff, like going to a restaurant that has a little display outside with like bronze fruit or something on a border, like around their menu, and replacing a pear with a banana. You know, stuff that will weird someone out, but they'll never quite get the answer. Like they'll just wonder about it forever. Or it'll be this weird anecdote they tell their friends, like, yeah, this weirdo, whatever. But this guy is doing the exact kind of thing I like, the rude roll-up prank. He's pretty clever, and he has a lot of video of himself doing this. He'll drive up in a car and stop some pedestrians, roll down his window, and ask for help, ask for directions. Common thing.
They'll give him directions because they're friendly.
While they're giving him directions, he just kind of rolls up his car window and looks away from him and just sits there. Just to see what they'll do. And beyond that, this is priceless. This is some beautiful, beautiful pranking.
All right, so check this out. This is a Tumblr, gabesfacesexual.tumblr.com.
Oh, my God.
It is a blog consisting of fan art of Gabe from Penny Arcade. So, you know, there is some actual Penny Arcade art, but most of it's fan art of other people drawing Gabe from Penny Arcade, usually in sexual ways. And, you know, Mike Krahulik himself tweeted, "So much of this art is so good that I cannot help but love it. GabesFaceSexual.com.tumblr.com. NSFW." So it is approved by Mike himself. Check this blog out. It is the goods. And yeah, there's some NSFW right on the first page. But it's strange because he's having sex with a woman, and Gabe's supposed to be totally gay for Spider-Man. So that's weird. It's clearly not canon.
So very briefly, in the meta moment, MagFest is coming up. You should go. We're going to be there. We're going to be doing Beyond Dungeons & Dragons 2.
Oh, shit.
We're going to be doing, we're going to be on 2 panels.
No, it should be Beyond Dungeons & Dragons 2nd edition.
We're going to be on 2 of the Magnon, or whatever they're calling
Advanced
now.
Beyond Dungeons & Dragons.
Gaming Intellectuals panels. I don't know if I can say what the titles are yet, but Dr. Hazard is going to be on at least one of the panels with us. So
watch out. He's smarter than us. Don't worry. We'll
if you ever thought that we were full of ourselves and like maybe like you wanted to disagree with us, but you weren't sure how, Dr. Hazard fucks us up when we argue about games. It'll be a good time. It's going to be like Punch-Out, 2 Glass Joes, and Mike Tyson.
I was going to play so many games.
Oh, my God. You know,
so much gaming.
I like PAX more. PAX is my favorite con, but I play way more games at MagFest.
Yeah. All right.
I also don't yell at PAX nearly as much as I do at MagFest.
Other meta moments. You should check us out on the internets, Facebooks, Twitters, Google Pluses. Oh, shit, son.
Also, on December 8th, a Thursday, it's coming up in New York City. There's a thing called Nerd Night.
Are we confirmed for that?
Yeah, we're pretty much confirmed. We're going
100%?
to be doing a 20-minute version of our old lecture, Losing Should Be Fun.
Is this 100% confirmed?
Yeah, and if it's not, whatever.
Okay.
I'll issue a retraction.
It costs money to go to this thing. I personally probably wouldn't pay to go, just being honest.
I don't pay to go to anything. So.
Yeah. But, you know, maybe someone else...
to be fair, I don't pay to go to anything because I can usually get a free press pass into anything.
Yeah, but I still wouldn't pay for a nerd get-together in the city because there's so many free ones.
Yeah, but we'll see. We've heard good things about this. Many of our friends have been to these and or presented at them, and we were invited, and it looks fun. So we'll be there, and I'll see if we can video the thing if they don't video it and get it up on the inner tubes.
Yep.
Otherwise, the book club book is...
2 books, double book club. A lot of people are having trouble realizing this. You must read 2 books. The first book you must read is Little Prince by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. It is very short. You should be able to read it in a night. I can read it in like 2 hours or even less, right? It's so short. Then you have to read a real book also by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry that will take you a little bit longer to read, but not that much longer. It's still short. It's just not one sitting short. And that is Wind, Sand, and Stars. At least that's the English title.
And while you should buy these books, I'll just point out that PDFs are available everywhere.
Yeah, we don't care about you buying books. We care about you reading books. It's about reading books. It's the important part, reading, not audio booking like some of you do. Reading. There are scientific studies that reading uses a different part of the brain. That is the part of the brain we want you to exercise. You're still getting the story, but you're exercising a different brain part with the audiobook, and that is not the goal.
And last but not least, PAX East is coming up. If you didn't get your hotel room already, good luck getting one.
If you're awesome, you're already going.
PAX East is the same weekend as Anime Boston, so double fucked if you don't have your hotel.
Oh, shit.
Registration is open, so if you're even thinking for a second that you might possibly go, buy a goddamn badge now because they're going to sell out.
Yep. By
Also,
like today, not tomorrow, not, I'll remember to do
pause this show
Pause
right
this
now.
show, get thee to a computer unless you're in a car, in which case, pull over to the side of the road and use your phone and buy the stupid ticket.
Yes, because you
do
can
not
resell
buy a
it.
ticket from a third party at all under any circumstance
Because
it will be a forged badge and they're going to come down on you so hard.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, guys, shortly ahead of PAX, we're probably going to put out a nice informative video on how to spot counterfeits because you know what? It is way easy to spot the counterfeits, and the more of you are out
if
looking
a guy
for them,
is selling them on the street for a ridiculously low price, they're probably counterfeits.
well, it's a way to find out. Just rip it in half.
Yeah,
You can't rip a real badge in half.
99.999% chance it's a counterfeit. The only chance it's not is if some moron sold their real one to that guy, and he's probably going to sell his counterfeit ones before he sells his real one. So, yeah.
And so, SOPA. We already talked about this, so we're not going to talk anymore about SOPA itself, about the law, about the activism, any of that crap.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're nerds, we're geeks, and we, personally, in case this passes, have contingency plans to not have to deal with the BS that's going to happen. Because while the piratebay.org won't resolve anymore from USDNS, piratebay.org is going to keep resolving on my personal PC.
It sure is.
And if my ISP starts blocking me, well, there's some VPNs and some SSL that's going to happen.
Yep. But you know what? There's a much easier way to solve all these problems. Move to the Netherlands. Show's over.
Or Canada.
Well, the Netherlands has like awesome fiber for everyone. That's why I chose that place.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind moving to the Netherlands. I wish it were warmer there.
Yeah. But, you know, just fucking move somewhere that has fucking fiber and end of story. Don't live in the U.S.
Yeah. I do worry that SOPA might pass.
I guess I'll plan to move.
So how do we get around this? Well, one...
If you decide that you can't leave the U.S. for whatever reason, what do you do?
So the one thing is that China's really good at cracking down. I do not think the U.S. is going to be that good at cracking down.
No, because it's not going to be in China. It's a government censorship organization, right? In the U.S., it's going to be companies like filing court thingies and sending notices and all sorts of bureaucracy of that nature. So there isn't going to be this central crackdown, thing that's like at the edge of the internet run by the government. It's going to be ISPs and search engines obeying orders and obeying those orders in whatever way they deem necessary. So it's going to be like, how are we going to do that? So all kinds of different things. So like something that might work, like some easy way out that might work on Time Warner might not work even on Time Warner in a different state, or it might not work on Fios, but it works on Cablevision. It's going to be all crazy.
So what do we do? First, the way DNS works, you can Google around for the details on how to do this, but basically, you should be running a DNS server in your house if you're a nerd at all. It's trivial to do, and you'll learn a lot, actually, along the way. Mm-hmm. Now, if you're using a DNS server in your house, what I recommend you do is set it up such that old records, unless they're refreshed, like cached records, never expire.
Yep.
So, if DNS for something gets blocked, you already know the IP address because you've been to that site before.
So, for example, Pirate Bay, today, I can go to my computer and I can type in, in fact, I'm at a computer, right? So I'm gonna do this right now for the good of everyone. Dig piratebay.org. Dig.
You can use NSLookup if you're on Windows.
Oh, that's true. Actually, I have Dig installed on the Windows at work, which is why I thought I could do it. Okay, the IP address of the Pirate Bay is 194.71.107.15 as of 7:08 p.m. on November 21st, 2011 Eastern Time, U.S. Right? So if they decide that they're going to block Pirate Bay, which is pretty much going to go down immediately if this law passes.
Well, one, you've already committed a crime if that law were passed because you provided the service of providing the name resolution of the, to the infringing site that has a court order against
right?
it.
And you type in nslookup piratebay.org, you're actually going to get different numbers. You're going to get the numbers for some government server that has a takedown notice web server running or something like that. So all you have to do is you just have to either put it in your host file, or if you did like Rim said and have your own DNS server that never forgets, like an Elephant and an Elephant DNS, your Elephant DNS server will still give you the old Pirate Bay number. And only people using their ISP's normal DNS servers will get the new number of that's wrong. So yeah, and most people, will never change their DNS, but it is trivial to do so. Even complete doofuses can do this thing. It's really easy on all 3 operating systems to change your DNS server.
In fact, as an aside, I found
you
recently...
can even change it on your router, and then every computer in your house will automatically have it changed, even phones and other things using
via
Wi-Fi.
the DHCP server that is running on your router.
Yep. So you don't even need to teach people to do anything. It's just like they'll come over to your house and how come Pirate Bay works at your house? Because I typed some numbers into my router.
So phase 2, or maybe phase 0, maybe it comes before.
So that may work.
If anyone's going to fight this, it's going to be Google. So you might want to just preemptively switch to Google's DNS.
Always
because
a good move.
There's a good chance that they'll hold on to records longer and or fight for whatever they need to fight for.
Yeah, you might not want to use Google DNS if you're not living in the U.S.
Oh, but there's no danger of this bullshit law
this
passing
this
if you live
law
outside
only affects
of the US.
the U.S., so who cares? Yeah.
Actually, Europe has good coverage for Google DNS.
That's true. But
anyway,
some European countries do have some censorships, though.
I recommend doing that anyway because lately I've actually been having a ton of problems with Verizon Fios periodically crapping out, and I did some investigation. And
it's really fast when it works.
It turned out it was Verizon's DNS servers mysteriously would stop responding when I queried YouTube and Pirate Bay and stuff.
Yeah.
And then they'd start responding again later. So I switched to Google, and that problem stopped happening.
Awesome.
Huh.
Yeah.
Funny that.
Yep. All right, so what if they don't just do this DNS blocking? What if they also do IP blocking, deep packet inspection?
Well, those are 2 things. If they do IP blocking specifically, then people who really want to provide their pirated stuff to the U.S. will start using dynamic IPs, or you'll start going through proxies, stuff like that.
It'll basically be the same thing the Chinese people do to get to the real internet.
It'll
right?
slow us down, but it won't stop us.
Exactly.
And it'll be annoying, but blocking IPs... that'll stop going to a website and downloading the content directly.
Yes, for example, so if they turn off mega upload, that's going to be the end of that.
But say they shut down Pirate Bay and they block all the IPs, they keep it every time Pirate Bay has a new IP address, they find it and block it. And there's no way around that. All right. You can use a proxy to get to Pirate Bay just fine because...
But what if they start blocking all the proxies? They have to do it really fast because it's how fast can we switch... Because it becomes a pain in the ass, basically, because...
Scott, that whack-a-mole game is never ending and impossible. But, too,
it's basically 2 people playing whack-a-mole against each other forever. So you have to basically keep changing the number in your proxy software thingy, and they have to keep changing the proxy servers.
No, because you keep your old IP, too.
Oh, you keep...
For the rest of the world.
No.
DNS stops working. DNS still points at you, except where the U.S. is mandating that they break it.
Ah, true.
Which is an interesting problem because, we talked about this before. All right.
But the people running the proxies, if the proxies get their IPs blocked, the proxies have to keep moving, and you have to keep updating the proxy on your computer because you're in the US.
But proxies are really hard to find and block, especially because most proxies are going to use SSL.
Everything you send to the proxy will be encrypted, so how's anyone going to even know to send a takedown notice for the proxy? Because they can be like, take down this IP address. What's at the IP address? There isn't even a website there or anything.
And the majority of... And piracy will just move even further into the Pirate Bay, where it's peer-to-peer anyway.
Right. Once you get that torrent file from Pirate Bay, that's it, right? They can't be blocking, everyone's individual personal computers. This is mostly going to be used for taking down sites, not my IP address in my house. So once you get the torrent file and your torrent's running, that's all peer-to-peer, and they're going to have a really hard time doing anything about that. Pretty much impossible to do anything about that.
So say you want to go the next step and have your DNS keep working. Well, if this passes, I'm pretty much assuming that DNS is fucked anyway.
People have already set up Elephant DNS servers. That's the name I'm calling it.
Yep.
I just made up that name.
Elephant DNS?
I'm not even kidding.
I like that name.
I just coined it.
So what you do, and this goes back to a kind of deeper discussion. We're kind of planning on doing a Thursday show about the general concept, but trust networks are very important if you ever intend to do things where you need to coordinate among a number of people and not get caught. That is the most diplomatic way I can put that.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are conspiring to do something, whatever it may be, in the future, it's too late. If you need to do it now and you haven't already planned this, it's too late. But if you have to do something down the road like this, you plan now. You've got a network of trust, network of friends. You exchange keys, one-time pads, asymmetric keys, whatever kind of encryption you want to use. You exchange keywords, you exchange IP addresses, you exchange all this information that is ready to be used to build a communications network on the fly immediately in the event of trouble.
Right, so there's one software that could be used to do this that might be hard to set up, but basically, architecturally, it's exactly what you want, and we could rebuild something like it quite easily. It was called Waste. It was written by the guy who made Nullsoft.
Waste was
Winamp.
ahead of its time and is a very important piece of software.
Right, but it was incredibly hard to use. So the way Waste works is this. I run Waste on my computer. I create cryptographic public-private keys, which we have talked about in the show before. Go listen to an old episode for how they work. You send your public keys to your friend. You tell your friend your IP address. He gives you his public key. Now your two wastes are connected. You've shared public keys. You know each other's IP address. You can now chat and send files with your friend in an unbreakable, encrypted manner. It's so awesome.
It's deniable. You can set it to constantly send data at a rate. And then if you send real data, the rate doesn't change. So you're going to slow yourself down significantly because you're picking the small rate. You're not going to be blowing, a megabit up and down constantly.
Right.
But there is no trivial mathematical way to figure out if what is going over that connection is garbage or content.
Yep. So then you get more friends in on this and more friends in on this, and everyone, you create this, it's hard to do. You have to do footwork. You have to give people key files and exchange IP addresses, but if everyone just connects to someone in this web, you build this mesh of encrypted, deniable, perfect trust, and information sharing with the chatting and the file sharing.
Now, a lot of people,
unbreakable.
A lot of people try to they have these visions where they want to take something like this and make it gigantic, or they want to make like a peer-to-peer DNS that is gigantic.
It breaks down because it's not fast enough.
No, not because it's not fast enough. It breaks down because now it's no longer a circle of trust. It's an open system that can be trivially exploited by people who, basically betray that
it's
trust.
like you go to a website and there's a list of IPs of people in the Waste network and a list of all the public keys. It's okay to share the public keys, but it's still like, here's a list of all the IPs to connect to, derp, derp, derp. Oh, great. Thanks, guys. You ruined it.
Your network of trust is fucked the moment you trust anyone who themselves are untrustworthy. So this is a more delicate thing. This is a balkanization of the internet in the short term. Basically, you and all the people you actually trust. Right now.
Really trust.
You have a list of people you know and a list of people you're friends with. You have a list of people you trust. These are the people you give an account on your personal PC to.
Yeah.
So you and only those people form your own network of trust. And if every circle of nerds does that, we'll basically route around this because every circle of nerds has at least one person outside of the US who can provide real DNS for them and or all the other proxies they need.
Right. So, for example, you could exchange, the current IP address of the Pirate Bay on your Waste network, right? Stuff like that.
Now, in general, you should do this anyway if you're nerds who ever plan to, do big things, because doing the footwork on this now sets you up for the future, because once, the FBI comes crashing down on you, or once the government comes crashing down on you, or you're in China and the government comes crashing down on you, it's already too late.
But pretty much the tools available to you are encryption, which is the most important, right? Peer-to-peer, which is the most important if they're taking down centralized repositories of things, right? Backup DNS, so you have the IP addresses. Proxies, so that you can route around things that need to be routed around. And that's pretty much it.
In a way, this law passing would not be good. It would ruin the internet for the short term. But at the same time, it would basically force all the circles of nerds who have the capabilities to do things like this to do it. And not to quote Star Wars or anything, but that is literally striking them down so that they become more powerful than we could possibly imagine.
Yeah, pretty much.
Because once the nerds all descend into the darknet with Hamachis and wastes and things like that, there's basically no way to get them back out.
Yeah, Hamachis and VPNs and virtual LANs and all this, right?
Nothing has actually driven nerds in the U.S. to need this technology.
Right,
so
people
they
are
don't use it.
nerds basically, it's like nerds like convenience, so what they do when they want to stay hidden is they use something like IRC, which is something normal people would never figure out how to use, or news groups, right? So it's hidden, it's hard for normal people to see, but it's still out in the open, and if a government agent wants to look at it, well, there it fucking is. They just have to know that it's there. If we actually hide further, if they push us farther down, we'll actually start using tools that are a huge pain in the ass, so even less people will be able to use them, but those that do use them will be unassailable. It's basically like we're in the fortress, we're on the ramparts, and we're like, yep, pretty safe up here, right? And then some guys start climbing up, and we're like, ah, shit. Then we actually go in the fortress and close the portcullis. You ain't getting in.
Yep, we're down in Ishual. You don't know where the fuck that is.
It's pretty much game over once you close the portcullis. So learn how to close your portcullis. Because you might need to go in there soon. Stock up with the water and the food and the swords if you have to.
Now, my recommendation, again, is to make these plans with your friends now. Because, one, this might pass, and you've got to, be ready before it's too late. And a good example of that, if any of you saw the old classic movie Hackers, which is basically the same movie as The Craft. They're both my cool thing. I wish it was actually that way, even though it isn't, for Wicca and hacking.
Yep.
The Matrix kind of fulfilled that same niche market for hacking. But anyway, there's a scene
The Matrix
where
is good.
I think it was Serial gets arrested. And he says something to his friend as he's being arrested to the effect of, because remember, he's being arrested. Everyone knows what he's saying. Hey, remember that place I hid that thing that one time?
Yep.
There's no way for that to mean anything to the people who are arresting him.
They know that the FBI now knows that he hid a thing, and when they go to court, they'll say he hid a thing somewhere. Arr.
He didn't even. He said, "Remember that place I hid that thing that one time."
Yep.
That's a keyword where like if I tell Scott, I'm not going to use any of my stuff, but if there are references I can make to things that literally Scott is the only person in the world who would know what I was referencing, and he would know exactly what to do.
Yep.
So if you've got all that stuff set up ahead of time, when you get arrested like Serial and you got to hack the planet, you're good. Unless all your friends get arrested at the same time.
Well,
then it's time for Radio Free America.
Yep.
This has been Geeknights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music, Kat Lee for web design, and Brando K for the logos.
Be sure to visit our website at frontrowcrew.com for show notes, discussion, news, and more.
Remember, Geeknights is not one, but 4 different shows. Sci-Tech Mondays, Gaming Tuesdays, Anime Comic Wednesdays, and Indiscriminate Thursdays.
Geeknights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution 3.0 license. Geeknights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.